Mother's Day. Special, special day in my life. It was on Mother's Day that I walked down the aisle of my home church in Mississippi, gave my heart and life to Jesus Christ. It was on Mother's Day that my godly grandmother was buried and celebrated life forever. So Mother's Day has a lot of memories in my life and in the lives of most of us, because I firmly believe that being a mother is probably the most demanding calling on the earth. A mother has to be able to be everything, name a vocation, and the mother has to fit in all those job descriptions. So I want to honor all the moms that are here and say congratulations. The goal of every mother and every father, for that matter, is that your children one day may rise up in spite of how you've had to discipline them, in spite of how you've had to have a strong hand on them at times when they would turn around and say, "I hate you, Mom." But our goal is that they'll rise up and call us blessed, blessed. Sometimes on Mother's Day, our story just explodes from the middle of our church family that is so powerful. It's beyond description. You have to see it and hear from the lips of that mom, I think, one of the greatest witnesses to Jesus Christ that I've ever heard. We're in for a special, special Mother's Day, one in which no one here, I promise you, will ever forget. Watch this introduction.
We're at the Tarrant County Junior Livestock Show, and our group of kids have steers.
My name's Kyle Polson, 48 years old. Lived in Houston till the early 80s and moved out to Belleville, Texas, just a little bit west of Houston. Fort Worth was a really good fit for me, and I decided to stay in Fort Worth and had a job opportunity, so I've been in Fort Worth since 1990.
It was important for me to get Jackson involved. We live in West Fort Worth, a little bit of a bubble. It's exposing him to kind of more of a real world, and it is like a job. He's getting up at 6 o'clock and doing stuff that other kids are maybe on their Xbox and playing Fortnite or something, and he's shoveling manure and kind of getting drug around a little bit.
Kyle is just the most selfless person I've ever met. He puts everyone before him. He'd give you the shirt off the back, and I know you hear that a lot, but that is a really true statement.
I think that if there are one or two things that most people in Fort Worth know Kyle for, it is his amazing devotion to his children.
My dad is one of the most fun people in the entire world. He always pushes me to do my best, always finding more opportunities for me to be better.
My parents were great faith and big believers, and they instilled that in my sister and I at an early age. I bet when I was 8 or 9, I knew I was adopted, or kind of understood the concept of being adopted. I never felt like I was different. I actually kind of felt special. This family took me, they wanted me. I really believe that when I was adopted, God put me with the perfect family. Maybe everyone thinks they've got the perfect family, but I really believe it. My dad was unbelievable, great man, morals and ethics, and just taught me kind of he's my hero. He was and always will be. And my mom was just always there. Our sporting events, we were at church every Sunday, home-cooked meals. You just kind of think it's the Cleavers. My dad passed away in 1995, which was really tough on me. That was 1 year after I got out of school. My mom was a diabetic and had a lot of health problems. So I had the unbelievable parents, unbelievable childhood. But when she passed away in November of 16, she had always encouraged me to try to go find my birth mother. So I started in probably February of 2017, and I contacted DePelchin, is where I was adopted. I had to fill out several questionnaires, and they'd pull some records and kind of in a quick way, they just said, listen, this is a closed file. We're sorry. We like to help you, but we can't. We protect the birth mothers. So, right, you got to respect that. She said, but if you want to, you can contact the court system. That's the next step in Texas. That's your last step. And so at that point, I was literally thought this was it. And then I just happened to look at the judge's name, contacted my wife's godmother, and she worked for Judge Ted Poe, knew a lot of the judges in Houston. I said, hey, do you happen to know this judge? She goes, I do know the judge. I know his cousin, and let me make some calls. This is about 8 o'clock. Well, she texts someone, and they call, and she called back with great news and said, judge is gonna open your file. So at that point, I was thinking, you know, I still got a chance. My son goes to school with a kid, and his mother's a private investigator. I said, hey, can we go to lunch? I'd like to visit with you. I'm trying to track down my birth mother, and here's these records I've found. This is the DePelchin records, which are all whited out. Here's the court records, which I'm kind of at a dead end. And I said, is there anything you can do? And she kind of smiled and said, yeah, I'll work on this. And literally in a couple hours, October 30th at 5:03, she calls me and says, Nina Hendee's your mother.
I'm Nina Hendee, and I'm married to Ed, and we own the Taste of Texas restaurant. We've been open 42 years, love what we do. We have 3 children and 11 grandchildren. When I was 17 years old, I surrendered a child to adoption. Very young, afraid, but knew from the very start what my choice would be, and that choice was life. And on June the 2nd, I delivered a beautiful baby boy. And the process was harsh then because it was very closed. I was not allowed to know anything. The only thing I had was the ability to pray.
And I was just like, wow, this emotion, I know who it is, she's alive. I immediately got online, and once you have someone's name, you can find a lot of stuff, especially someone like Nina, who's just a great person doing so much for the community that you could just see this unbelievable person, this great life she's got. She had this unbelievable husband, she's got this great family, she's in Houston, just being an awesome person. And so the emotion on October 30th going forward was just unbelievable.
I met my precious husband, and on our second date, I realized he was an amazing guy. And so we went to dinner, and we sat at the table, and I said, okay, this might be the deal breaker, but I want you to know who I am.
And I just struck me. I stopped in my tracks and took a deep breath, and I said, there is a woman of moral conviction, of incredible character and strength and courage and self-reliance that she would act on, not out of convenience. She would act on this and take the tougher road and give this child a chance at life, and then say, this is part of my life because I made that. And I thought, that is the woman I want to be married to.
I was assuming and guessed that I was probably some secret. No one knew about me. And so how could I reach out to her without upsetting her life? I didn't want to be the grenade that comes in at age 48 and destroy her life or do anything to harm her. So for the next couple months, I start writing a letter.
I think the letter had a full 25 drafts. He really knew he had one chance to get it right, to present it correctly to her, to make her feel comfortable.
I walked into the kitchen, and Ed had gotten the mail, and there was a letter on the top of the mail that said personal and confidential. And I opened the letter, and it said, my name is Kyle Polson, and I believe you're my birth mother. Oh my goodness.
I get a telephone call, and I've got her number saved, and it's Nina. My heart's about coming out of my chest. and she said, "I've been looking for you for 48 years. And I just, very emotional, talking to your mother for the first time at age 48, but it was unbelievable. We kind of talked about a plan, and we started texting from that day forward, and then I started thinking, where are we going to have this reunion? This is where we had our first reunion. Ed dropped her off. She was kind of sending me text. I'm getting close, here I am. She's here, she says, I'm here, I'm coming up the elevator. And then she came off the elevator. I was sitting right here looking at the elevators, and she rounded the corner, and the whole emotion of seeing your mom for the first time in person was pretty amazing.
It was like he'd always been there. It was as natural and normal, and to get to tell him the things that I had prayed for him for his entire life.
I don't know how you can feel love so quick. Shouldn't have to say it, but you feel the love, it's real, and both of them have just been all in, and you're part of the family. This is what we're doing. And you'd think that would take some time, and it's instant.
Kyle grew up right here. All along, God had him in my heart, but he also had him right here. So Kyle went to beach retreat at Second Baptist Church.
Oddly enough, in middle school, I would go to the Second Baptist beach retreat, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it was a very spiritual thing. We'd go on the beach and have this quiet time and pray, and Dr. Young said, I want you to ask God to be your Savior. That was the time I really put it on the table and asked, and had that feeling of, man, he's with me. God's behind me, and he's guiding my ship.
Every time I would think about him, I would pray, God, if it's ever your will for us to reunite, God, let that be, please. That is the desire of my heart. And, he tells us, I will give you the desires of your heart.
Dear Mrs. Hendee, please know that I realize from the very bottom of my heart what a shock this letter must be.
Please know that I have spent years considering the best way to reach out to you and deliver this letter, fully understanding the significance and the impact on both of our lives.
I originally started writing this note on June 2nd, my 48th birthday, as I reflected on the extraordinary gift you gave me. I am certain adoption was a painful decision, but I want you to know everything worked out exactly as God planned.
You made the ultimate selfless decision, and you gave me the chance for an amazing life. My parents, Mary Jo and Knut Poulsen, were simply exceptional. They were incredible and nurturing, and the most loving parents I have ever witnessed. What a blessing that they were mine.
I have no doubt I am the most fortunate adopted person ever, and cannot imagine anyone having had a better childhood than me.
They were devoted Christians, and the faith that they taught me helped me form the family that we are, and it got us through the highs and lows of life.
Unfortunately, they are both gone now and have been reunited with each other with Christ in heaven.
She and my dad lived their life entirely, completely in love with each other, with their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
On my birthday, every year my mom would cry and tell me one of her greatest wishes was for the selfless woman who gave birth to me to see how I turned out.
I can't help tearing up. I've seen that film. I've heard this story. I've known and loved my wife for 45 plus years. I've known about another child. And now since this last December, we've known Kyle and his family. And I've still got a handkerchief at the ready when I watch it. If that doesn't light your fire, your wood is wet, folks. It's the greatest Mother's Day story ever. And here to complete it, it is my joy and my pleasure to introduce my precious wife, Nina Hendee, and our son, Kyle Poulsen.
Happy Mother's Day. There are no words that I can say to adequately describe my feelings right now, but here are a few as I try my best. The first word is awe. I'm in complete awe of God's grace. I would have never dreamed of a world where I would one day not only find my birth mom, the amazing Nina Hendee, but find such love, acceptance, and family immediately. Although we were only reunited 136 days ago, I'm convinced she has walked beside me my entire life. We have a lot in common. My friends and family would be the first to tell you that I too can't sit still. The to-do lists are long. If you're going to do something, do it right. Go big or go home. And lazy's not in the playbook. They would also tell you that family and faith comes first for me always. They would probably tell you that I have a deep appreciation for Texas history, the come and take it flag, our amazing military and servicemen, and the gift of living in the best state in the best country in the world. You might say there is no question I'm definitely Nina's child. I am awed by her and Ed and their faith, their love for each other, their love for family, and their love for their friends. I'm in awe of Nina Hendee for her courage in stepping out so boldly to tell her story, our story, as one of life, joy, and restoration. I am truly filled with awe that God has brought us together today here in this church as we tell that story. I am in awe of the inexplicable number of connections between my life and Nina's over the last 48 years. My godparents and closest family friends have been members of Second Baptist since 1979, and I was often here as a kid. I went to beach retreat in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. When we lived in Houston, we lived in Briar Grove Park. I lived less than 1 mile from the Taste of Texas. My family had dinner several times in Nina's restaurant. Ed and my godfather were men's prayer team members for 25 years. My sweet mom had an incredible group of friends, many here today, that also knew Nina through Second Baptist Bible studies and other charity work. In fact, one of those mutual friends, who has been in Nina's Bible study for 25 years, actually went with my mom to Alabama in the early 90s as my mom searched for her own birth mother, as she too was adopted. I grew up working in my dad's sale barn near Belleville, where Ed and Nina once came to a sale. I have no doubt I was working cattle in the back that day. We realized Nina's neighbor's mom and my mom were neighbors and friends at the Belmont Village just across the street. Recently, Nina's neighbor saw a picture of me and asked, "Why do you have a picture of Kyle Polson?" Nina replied, "Well, that's my son." Some of our closest friends in Fort Worth have actually known Ed and Nina for almost 20 years. I coached their boys in baseball and football, and we raised show steers together. You can't make all this up. I am in awe of God that He weaves together the fabric of so many lives in ways that we will never understand, but know His hand is in all of this. There's really no other explanation. The second word best describes this today for me is grateful. Today is Mother's Day. I sincerely believe I had the greatest mom and dad, Mary Jo and Knut Polson, for whom I am forever grateful. Many of you here today watching live had the blessing to know them, and to know them was a gift. They were joyful, kind, down-to-earth people. They taught me and my wonderful sister Kirsten that faith, family, and friends were truly life's greatest joys. And what a joyful life, first Nina, then my parents, have given to me. I'm a lucky man. I got to spend 44 Mother's Days with my mom before she left us on November 11th, 2016. I have no doubt heaven is shining even brighter than normal right now as she and my dad smile down on us today. I'm grateful for my wife, Erin, and my kids, Grayson and Jackson, all here today. Erin has dedicated her life to our family, believing there is no greater calling than that. Thank you, Erin, and thank you, Grayson and Jackson, for being here today and giving me the best reason to wake up every day. I'm grateful for Nina and Ed, grateful to see how they live their lives. The positive impact on their friends and this community is inspiring. It makes me want to be better and do more for others. Nina and I have loved and laughed a lot over the last couple of months, but probably both relieved to find that neither one of us is living under a bridge. I'm grateful for my sister Kirsten, Lisa, Kristen, Claudine, and their families for their support and being part of this journey. I didn't have the privilege of knowing Ed Kay, but I know he's here with us, and I know he's proud of his mom. And finally, the third word that comes to mind is excited. I'm excited for what God has in store for all of us as we navigate this next part of our lives together. To meet and know Nina, to begin to understand her story, the extraordinary courage and her life choice for life she made almost 49 years ago, and again, the extraordinary courage in her sharing her journey today is a story that will ring true and hopefully inspire and bless others far into the future. When Aaron left the letter in Nina's mailbox just a few short months ago, I would have never guessed that we would be standing together here at Second Baptist on Mother's Day, telling our story to the world. I had to be prepared that we may only meet once. I could tell her thank you for choosing life, and then we would go back to our lives and with no one knowing anything more. I hoped and prayed for more, but knew the odds were small. Wow, how wrong was I? I obviously didn't know who Nina Hendee was then, but I would soon find out. And how grateful and excited and awe that I am here with Nina celebrating our first Mother's Day together. Today marks a new and beautiful day, a new and beautiful chapter, and to God be all the glory. Thank you, Dr. Young, for letting us share our special story today. Happy Mother's Day, Nina.
Oh my goodness, what a Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to all of the moms. It is so good to be back in the house of the Lord. And what a day it is. We've been members of Second Baptist Church for 28 years, and you are our family. Through good times and bad times, you are a church family, and you are such a blessing to us. So to actually be present in the house of the Lord is such a gift. Thank you for the love that you have poured out on me in the last few months since I shared my story about Kyle. My life is truly blessed in every way. And my husband, Ed, is one of my greatest blessings. To say that Ed loves me, friends, is just such an understatement. He is very intentional in his love for me and for our family, and that is a gift from God. We've been married for 45 years, and we have 4 incredible children and 11 grandchildren. Today, I'd like to tell you about 3 moms that have made a tremendous impact in my life by praying without ceasing. First is my own mom, Jean Johnson. She was orphaned at age 8 during the Great Depression, and she grew up in the Fowler Orphanage in Dallas, Texas. She claimed she was 5 feet tall. No, she was 4'10" at best, and she was powerful in her faith, her love, and her strength of conviction. She shaped our family. She would call me every morning and ask, "Honey, how can I pray for you today?" I use that daily with my kids and my grandkids. How can I pray for you today? The woman of strength that she is with me every day. My second mom was my mother-in-law, Nina Hendee. She loved me so unconditionally, and she was truly one of my best friends. Anne was always willing to step up and help with any project I had going, whether it was cleaning the restaurant or decorating for Christmas or teaching me how to put up preserves or pickles. She, too, had grown up in the Depression, and relationships were everything to her. She loved her family and was patient and kind with every single one of us. including Ed's dad, Al Hendee, who was a real character. They would come to Second Baptist with us and visit. And one Sunday, to our surprise, Al Hendee rose from his seat during the invitation and walked the aisle. The very next Sunday, he rose from his seat again and walked the aisle again. Ed told him after counseling, "Dad, you only have to do that once." And he said, "I know. I just had another great off-color joke to tell the pastor. No one ever tells the pastor the good jokes." I grew up in Dallas in a really wonderful but imperfect family. My parents knew and loved the Lord, and they were prayer warriors. I was active in my church, and I loved my church youth group. Just after Christmas, my junior year, while in a relationship with my high school sweetheart, I realized I was pregnant. Oh my. That was simply not acceptable for the 17-year-old daughter of a fairly prominent family to be pregnant at that time in our society. I was standing under the pecan tree in the front yard of my home when I made a decision that would impact my life in ways that I could never even imagine. I was going to have this baby. The alternative was not acceptable. After I explained the situation to my family and my decision, my mother replied to me that God would honor the decision not to turn a mistake into a tragedy. And so I moved to Houston to live with my brother Dan and his beautiful wife, Joycelyn. Dan was a senior at Rice University and brand newly married. And so here comes his pregnant younger sister to live with them and attend school at the Florence Crittenden Home for Unwed Mothers. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." I was born with a lot of energy, and it has never been easy for me to be still. But from January to June of 1971, I had a lot of time to be still. My Crittenden classes contained counseling on what adoption meant for me going forward, including sealing court records forever and how detrimental it would be if I ever tried to contact my child, if I ever attempted to contact him. Crittenden was a Christian organization, and my very favorite counselor told me one day as I was sitting in her office sobbing, she told me to pray without ceasing, pray without stopping. She told me that God would bless my decision to choose life, to never stop praying for my baby. She told me that no court could stop it if God wanted me to reunite with my child. And so I prayed for 48 years. I prayed. I prayed first for him to be healthy, both spiritually and physically. I prayed for him to know the Lord, for him to know the love of the Lord, and for him to find joy in life. I prayed for God to choose an adoptive family that would love him the way every child deserves to be loved. I prayed for his wife and his family. I prayed for him to know how much I loved him. And I prayed for one day for us to be reunited. I prayed if it was God's will for him to be successful, for God to let that be. I prayed for him to not live under a bridge. On the morning of June the 2nd of 1971 at Memorial Hermann Hospital in Houston, Texas, I gave birth to a beautiful 7-pound, 1-ounce baby boy. Prayer number 1 was answered. The adoption rules were very strict, and I had been told I would not be allowed to see him or to hold him. But God had a different plan. God sent a compassionate nurse who placed him in my arms, smiled, winked, and told me she was needed at the desk. I got to hold my precious baby for 20 minutes and to pour out my love for him, to share my hopes, my dreams, my prayers for his life. I have probably thanked God 1,000 times for that nurse. When she returned, she took him from my arms, and I told my precious baby goodbye, not knowing if I would ever see him again. With the strength that comes only from knowing the Lord, I surrendered him with perfect peace, knowing that God is in control and believing that God would give him a life that I could not provide for him. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." I have never regretted the hardest decision of my life because it really defined my life. I came to treasure every moment with my children, and it made me a much better mom. I've never taken my children's love, abundant love for me, for granted. 1 John 3:4 says, "I have no greater joy than to know that my children are walking in the truth." Our daughters, Lisa and Kristen, our daughter-in-law, Claudine, and all of their spouses love the Lord and are walking in the truth. Yes, we lost our son, Ed, 10 years ago in a skiing accident, but God continues to heal and bless our family richly. And the power of prayer is truly phenomenal. A few years ago, Dr. Young preached a sermon about being disciplined in our prayer life, and I decided to try to put it into practice. I pray in order, which makes sense to all of you left-brained people who have a system even for prayer. I start with praise for what the Lord has done, thanking him for his many blessings. I ask God to search me and to know me and to find any unclean way in me. I ask God to forgive me for my failings. I thank God for my husband and for his incredible love for me. I pray for our children in order. I pray for the grandchildren in order. I pray for the baby that I surrendered 48 years ago. Father God, if it is your will for us to be reunited. This past Thanksgiving was just a season of joy in our family. We just had a wonderful season. I felt my spirit quickening, really anticipating a blessing. I thought it was the upcoming Christmas season and the beautiful decorations at the Taste of Texas, anticipating the blessing. But God was preparing me for this incredible gift that I had been praying for nonstop. In the next week, as I prayed, the baby kept coming to mind over and over. Out of the blue, just out of nowhere, I called my brother that lives in Dallas, and I said, "Thank you for loving me through the hardest time of my life." Thinking back, brand newly married, they took me in, they loved me so completely. I said, "Thank you for loving me." The following week, on December the 16th, at 7:10 a.m. in the morning, I walked into our kitchen, and Ed had gotten the mail, and on top of the mail was a letter marked personal and confidential. Dear Mrs. Hendee, my name is Kyle Polson. I told you there were 3 mothers who prayed without ceasing and greatly influenced my life. My mom, Ed's mom, and as it turns out, in God's great faithfulness, Kyle's mom, Mary Jo Polson. Wow. She was a phenomenal woman in every way. I've been so blessed by Mary Jo's friends reaching out to me to tell me who she was. She had amazing faith. She was involved in community Bible study. She was stunningly beautiful, both inside and out. She was incredibly loving, gracious, and hilarious. She brought joy whenever she went, and she was adored by her family and friends. She served her community faithfully, and she raised an amazing daughter, Kirsten, and son, Kyle. I have never met her, but I would have loved to have had the opportunity to thank her for all she did. God answered my prayers faithfully through Mary Jo and Canute as they provided Kyle the life, the love, the family that I had prayed for over and over for so many years. In the last years of her life, she encouraged Kyle to go and find his birth mother so she could see what kind of a man he grew to be. Even in her absence, Mary Jo continues to bless me daily. I can see clearly now, through that glass dimly lit, how God was moving to answer every one of my prayers. Kyle was raised a mile from the taste of Texas and enjoyed family dinners there as a child. He attended Second Baptist Beach Retreat and accepted Christ on that beach. He attended St. Francis Episcopal School and played on sports teams with close friends of ours. We have found countless intertwined family and friends that are unbelievable blessings in our lives. God is so good. There are many miracles in the midst of our reunion story, and God continues to remind us that He is the center of it all. Even today, as we are here socially distanced and trying to figure out what life is going to look like going forward, we're not much different than that scared 17-year-old mom 48 years ago. It's almost unbelievable and seemingly impossible, but all things are possible with God. I could have never imagined how all of this would turn out, but I know one thing. God is all we need. He loves me. He loves you. He forgives me, and He forgives you. He delights in restoring us and answering our prayers and in showing us the intricacies of His plan for us. God is in the restoration business. When we pray in earnest, we cannot see God's timetable or His will, but we must trust in His goodness and believe that His will is perfect for all of us. Jeremiah 29:11-12 says it all. For I know the plans that I have for you, Nina, Kyle, Second Baptist family, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. Happy Mother's Day.
When Nina was 17, she made the wrong choice. But under that pecan tree, she made the right choice. There's some here who've made the wrong choice, and then they turned around and then made a second wrong choice. But as we have celebrated in the reconciliation here, those who made that second wrong choice, you can be sure by the grace of God in Jesus Christ, when we get to heaven, there'll be the same kind of reunion there as we've experienced in a human relationship here. And we say, thank God for these two families to let you and to let me walk into their lives. And when somebody opens up their life, remember what that is. It's holy, holy ground. How thankful we are that God does not leave anything fragmenting. What we break, He heals in heaven through Jesus Christ. But it's a beautiful thing while we're still on this earth, ladies and gentlemen, that we see this fabulous story, almost a miraculous story, we'd say, of a father, a son, a mother, a daughter, a mother and a son. What a marvelous family celebration on this Mother's Day. Do you agree?